This is Nothing Coherent. I'm Brandon.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Ryan.
Today we're talking about Tiger King, the newest Netflix documentary that's taken the world by storm.
It is insane how
Yeah,
much it's like taken over. I see memes every day. It's not slowing down.
my favorite memes are the "I'm never gonna financially recover from this," which
Yeah.
I think is just like such. It fits his character so perfectly,
Yeah.
and it's also a great meme. So, and I
Yeah.
like how they called it Mimi in the
The last episode.
the follow up "Where Are They Now" episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that.
You get things.
So I had no idea what to expect with Tiger King when it first came up on Netflix. I was like, I might watch this. It could be interesting. I did not expect it to be as dramatic and hilarious as it was. Because there are parts that are actually really funny to me, especially just Joe as a character. I'm like, this man is almost like a modern day Greek tragedy with just where he ends up by the end of this documentary. He wants all this fame and everything, and of course we know what happens to him by the end. But what did you guys think overall? Did you enjoy your experience binging this series, or did it not go where you thought it was going to?
Enjoy is a hard word to put towards this, but it was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you're not going to stop watching it because it's so crazy and so outlandish. And what's even more funny is they're actually really close to where we live. So
Yeah.
not only are they making fun of these people out in Oklahoma or whatever, but we're in Southwest Missouri, so
We're like an hour away, 2 hours away.
yeah. So not only are these crazy people you think they're far away or whatever, but no, they're actually just just a few minutes drive down the road from us.
I could have went to Joe Exotic's petting zoo down there.
I think as Nothing Coherent, we should all three go. And
Well, they're moving it to Texas, right? That's what it sucks. We missed our opportunity to do a
Yeah, I
recording
know,
from
right?
there.
I mean, it's not like we could really go right now anyway with everything going on, but
we're gonna break in.
the plan was after everything went back to normal, I was gonna probably feed Jacob Woodworth to the Tigers. So, just kidding, love you, Jake.
For me, so when I heard about the documentary, I only saw the picture of Carol and her husband at their wedding, where he's got the leash on him,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "Oh, this is some weird sex show." I'm like, "I'm not watching."
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like, "What is this?"
Tigers
But then-
sex.
But then my cousins watched it, and I'm like, they wouldn't watch some weird sex show. So we started it up,
Mm-hmm.
and the first episode, I was like, I don't know if I like this, but I'm like, we need to keep watching because it's a tragedy. This isn't a comedy. It's
Right.
funny because of just how out there these people are.
Everyone
but this show
is so weird, and you're so fascinated by these people, but it's so bad. The way these people act and treat other people. But
It's like the first episode. It's actually his name. That gets the arm ripped off.
Saf.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And I guess how casual he was yeah, I got my arm ripped off,
Mm-hmm.
then went back to work 3 or 4 or 5 days later or whatever it was. And
Yeah,
I'm
something crazy
what
like
is
that.
this?
Yeah, no,
that
I
was
think
your
it wasn't
first shock
until
factor.
maybe the third episode's ending until I got really hooked. Once it started to become about who's Carol Baskin and what her history is and how she essentially rose to power, I was like, okay, this I want to see. I want to see the true crime element of her background and everything. And I think that's my favorite meme that's come out of the entire series is, did Carol Baskins kill her first husband? And they made a whole episode out of that. And I was just like, that to me was the one that I was like, this is the most interesting. And then, of course, the final episode before this follow-up one I thought was really good, too. I really liked Joe Exotic, actually. I thought he was just so wacky and interesting to watch, but he's a terrible person. I'm not saying that he should be pardoned by any means, but I did see on the news when Donald Trump was giving a briefing that somebody asked him about Tiger King because his son watched it, and his son said, "Yeah, I'll see if my dad will pardon him." And the radio was just going nuts over that. And Donald Trump was like, "I'll watch the documentary and get back to you on whether or not I'll actually do that." And I'm like, people on Twitter and on Facebook are like, "Joe Exotic might get freed, boys." And I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, let's
Well,
not.
Joe has a Twitter account that I don't know if it's run by him or if it's run by his husband or who, but it is still constantly tweeting
Yeah,
out.
I know.
And it's tweeted at the president a few times about getting a pardon and getting out of jail.
Right,
So,
and I'm just like, this is something else, man. Like, you think that these people almost have to be acting, like they're just putting
I
on
wish.
they're just putting on a show for all these cameras because all of them are crazy. Like, in their own ways, all of them are crazy. And no, they're not. Like, they're all these wild, ridiculous people that you have to see to believe. Like, we cannot do this documentary justice with, like, just how out there these people are. Like, and I think that's the most fascinating part about it, is you want to see more about their day-to-day lives at the time. Like, at one point, Joe was even running for governor. And I was like, this is just ridiculous at this point. Like, here's this like gay cowboy who's got 2 husbands, who has like almost 300 tigers, and he's running for governor. I'm like, what is going on? What is this series? And I think that's the part that really hooked people, is just how crazy it was. I think that's why it's taken off.
I do remember back in 2018 seeing some posts on Facebook because I have family and some friends who live in Oklahoma about him. And it never crossed my mind until that episode where it showed him running for governor. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I remember seeing stuff on this guy.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember.
He's like Vermin Supreme, if you know who that is, but with tigers. Like, just a crazy political character.
Vermin is like leaps and bounds. He's a pure man and has.
I don't know if he's a pure man, but he's somebody I would vote for. Anyway, I think the saddest thing is just like, we see these tigers pretty much just going through horrible living conditions, and a lot of the people keep saying the same thing of, well, their homes have been destroyed, so there's nowhere for them to really go, so this is just the life they have to have now. And I'm like, that really sucks. You know, like, because almost all of them are saying that, but they're all against each other, and they're all using the cats to their own advantage, almost to just, like, get one up on each other rather than coming together and doing what's best for these cats. Like, they claim to love the cats, but based on what we see in the show, I don't think that's really true. Like,
well, it was funny to me, some people have already pointed this out, but it was like Carol Baskin's like, well, I don't lock up my tigers in the cages and stuff, and then like literally there's like so many clips of her with just tigers in cages behind her. So
yeah, she came off as a hypocrite to me watching the entire series. Would I say she's as bad as Joe? No, but
no, and I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this. I think Carol is a terrible person. I don't think she's really much different than Joe. But I think her case is that
Carol fan over here.
Yeah.
Hold on. I don't think she's awful. But like the cub petting, like I agree with her in that aspect of like that does cause damage to them, and that is something that is an issue.
Oh, I
and
agree.
that's something that
should
should
be
be
a
allowing.
thing.
And I think that's the only difference between her and Joe. Everything else, they're on the same page. But Carol's the worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't stand her.
Yes.
Somebody like said that she reminded them of Hillary Clinton, and I was like, I can kind of see that.
I saw a side-by-side picture of them, like half their face of each, and they look really similar.
Yeah.
I think it's Hillary Clinton.
It's just Hillary Clinton on her days off from, being a senator.
Well, you know how all those people disappear that the Clintons have killed off? She just feeds them to the tigers. It makes sense.
Oh, no. We're gonna make some people mad here. Like,
derailing here.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Do you think that Joe actually plotted to get Carol killed, or is that just a convenient story that they used to get Joe arrested? Because he said stuff like that all the time, but he never tried to follow through on it for years. And then all of a sudden he's trying to do it when there's cameras around. That seems really weird to me. But at the same time, I don't think he knew anybody who would have done it until he met, what's his name? The guy who backed out of killing them or whatever.
Is it Alan?
I can't
Alan.
remember his name. It's Alex or
It's Alan.
Yeah.
It's Alan.
Yeah.
No,
I was just like, this is something else, man.
That Alan guy, like if you woke up in the middle of the night and he was just staring at you, I would piss myself real hard.
Like
I love when he's interviewed in the bathtub.
Yeah, I was just like, what is happening here? Like
one of the interview questions, like in the last episode that they just released, they ask, they're like, "What is all that about?" And they're like, "I didn't even know that was like I didn't even know that even happened."
Mm-hmm.
So no one knows why that actually happened in the bathtub, but
yeah,
one of the camera boys in there, I guess.
Yeah,
I wonder if he was just like, "Hey, I got to do this," and they're like, "Well, we need to finish because it's like our last day with you." And he's like, "Well, follow me. We'll go in here and I'll start digging a bath."
What'd you guys think of Jeff Lowe, the guy who has the park now? Like, I feel like he's kind of a con artist.
I think I definitely think he did him dirty. I definitely think Joe got taken advantage of on that side.
Yeah, especially with everything going on at the time. Like,
it's funny.
His husband killed himself, which was really sad, actually, when that happened.
But he took over before then.
Yeah, but like at that point, like it was there was no going back.
But
like,
what's interesting, perhaps, is that Joe is so paranoid about everything, but then he just like lets this dude just like take advantage of him and like literally just takes over the zoo. Like he was so paranoid about everything else and about how certain people come in and they had the whole place protected and he would shoot anybody that would try to trespass and all this stuff. And then you got this guy.
Then you find out like by the end that Joe actually killed, I think it was 5 tigers, right?
That's what
they're saying were actually healthy.
That's the ones they got confirmed.
Yeah,
right.
And he confirmed that in prison as well. They have
he confirmed that he did that. So like by the end, you're just like, man, like the one thing that I kind of had faith in you in was that you wouldn't hurt your tigers, but he ended up doing that. So I'm like, that alone
that's the hard part is
keep you in jail. To me.
I think everybody comes down to that because everything else is kind of skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, should he, is he just kind of an outlandish guy that just kind of trash talks and just says things, doesn't really mean it, or whatever the case is, and everybody kind of makes excuses in their minds as they're watching it. But when it comes to the tigers and him just killing it for cage space, and he admits that, then your appreciation for Joe, or at least trying to make him a normal human being or whatever, because he's just so outlandish, then it just kind of drops. Then you're like, okay, I can't really like this guy.
That was when I was just like, I was kind of with you. And then it just goes to just even worse. Like, out of all the people in the show, I was like, I guess this is the person I want to succeed the most. Like, which sounds really bad.
Because it's really hard because there's no character in this show. In real life, that you're like, all of you are terrible. All 4 of the big ones we follow are bad.
Yeah,
like,
it's all the other people in the show that I feel bad for. Like the people who work for them and stuff. Like Josh, the campaign manager, his story for me was so sad.
and it's so tragic.
Yeah, like, and especially in the follow-up episode where I just finished watching it. Brandon, I think you did too. And he said, after Travis shot himself, nobody offered to get me help. And I was like, that's awful. Like, to hear that, I'm like, especially for Joe to not even offer to get him help because he saw his husband kill himself. And I'm like, that's really sad.
Well, there's a lot of weird things with that. But before I forget, I was going to make a point about Josh as well. In the last episode, you kind of get a better feeling of how he feels about Joe. I mean, like, they interview him throughout.
Yeah, almost everybody said they could not stand Joe. They hated Joe.
Yeah, but the one thing that he said that no one else really said was that Joe was a really genuine good guy, that he made mistakes, but he owned up to them, and he kind of defended him in a way that, he has a heart.
Yeah, Saf said something similar.
That was Saf, wasn't it, who said that?
Saf said that Joe would give you, like, the stuff, like the clothes on your back, but Josh also said he wouldn't hurt anybody.
He's talking about Thanksgiving dinner and all that.
Yeah, that was Saf,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I made note of that. I was like, Saf wrote down that, like, he had good things to say about Joe, but he still, in the end, said that he would trust the tiger that bit his own arm off over Joe, which was kind of shocking.
Who wouldn't?
I was just like, all right.
Joe turned 2 straight men gay. and
Yeah.
convinced them for years that they were gay, and then
Yeah, but at the
gets
same
upset
time,
when one leaves.
that was also a really rough part of the documentary for me, was just how much of a manipulator Joe could be to people on his park. I was just like, wow, you take these two young teenagers, get them like hooked on meth and everything, and just really ruin their lives, you know. And I actually felt really happy for John Finley, the guy who always had his shirt off in the interviews. He said, you know, like, I didn't like the way the documentary portrayed me because I'd been clean for years at that point, and I have a 5-year-old daughter, and, like, I don't think the documentary itself actually showed that aspect of his life, apart from him hooking up with somebody that worked at the zoo behind Joe's back.
Yeah, I want to know because he talked about the documentary they started filming in like early 2015.
Yeah,
so
like 5 years ago.
Yeah, that would have only been right when he started to get off the drugs. Would have
Right.
been then. So, because he said in 2013, I could be totally wrong. I thought he said at the beginning of the documentary he met that guy in like 2013, 2014 with the snow leopard in the back of his van.
Yeah, I can't recall the exact time period, but that sounds accurate. But I also really liked what's his name? The guy with the prosthetic legs. I liked him a lot for whatever reason.
Matt.
John Rinke. I liked his prosthetic legs a lot. They were cool. Like, I don't know why. I was just like, he said that that's how he gets recognized in public a lot, is just because of like the paint on his prosthetic legs. I'm like, I'd probably wear pants, like, just so I'm not recognized then, so I can not be bothered when I'm trying to go to the grocery store and avoid shaking people's hands right now. But everybody in this show is just like so out there. Even like the people that aren't like bad, like Eric, the head zookeeper.
The only normal person in this show was the Walmart employee. I think they interviewed.
Yeah.
For like a brief second. He's like the most normal one.
Yeah. James Garretson was another one that we haven't talked about yet. He's the one that started with the investigation with the FBI. Or was it the Federal Conservation? I can't remember who it was. But he allegedly sold a stolen Hummer, and he had a lemur, and he was like, well, I gotta throw Joe Exotic under the bus.
That went into the sunset or whatever with the Sea-Doo.
Yeah. So weird. Like,
I want stories behind that shot with him on the jet ski and the bathtub. I have to know, was James just like, hey, can you come out here for a minute? I want to record this shot. And then they're like, yeah, let's put this in the documentary.
You know, something crazy, man. Like, everybody's just so much of a train wreck to watch, but you can't look away.
Oh,
like,
right.
I think that's the perfect way to sum it up. Like, I enjoyed the series, obviously, but, like, these are horrible people. I wish this was not real, because I was so entertained by just how crazy these people were. But these are real people, and, like, Joe being in prison is a good thing. I hope that they go after some of these other people, but I don't know if they have anything to get them on. But I hope that at some point they figure out a way to save all those cats from captivity, but there's not really anywhere to put them. You know, I don't think.
Right, and that's what somebody said in the follow-up episode is, I mean, free the animals is right, but where do they go? Because they can't go back in the wild now.
He mentioned that. He was like, you know, like, everybody wants the animals freed, but where are they going to go? We've destroyed their habitats, which I think is what a lot of these these cat people have used as the excuse for holding all these cats basically hostage, and they can't have a regular life in the wild. And even if you put them all in the wild now, they couldn't survive because they rely so much on food being given to them and everything. It's actually really sad. And I think sometimes people, myself included even, we get caught up in the memes of the show rather than what it was actually about, which was exposing these people for just how terrible they can be. And
right, I mean, it's the tragedy of Joe. That's what the show's about. And that was even an article by somebody who is close to our area that was talking about how, like, cub petting has gone crazy up because people want to do it now
Yeah.
because they saw it in the show when it's like not the takeaway you should have.
Right.
And I do agree that I think the show needed to portray a little bit more of that because it doesn't villainize Joe as much as I think it should have, even though he's constantly doing bad things and he is a bad person, I think.
Yeah, but they also make him so charismatic and likable, which, I mean, I guess that's him in real life.
Yeah.
But they don't do enough to show you, like, how awful he can be. Like, everybody's talking about how Joe would, like, run people down for, like, 20 minutes and just fire people. They don't really show that as much as you'd think.
Well, they showed one clip of him doing it in front of everybody,
and then of course there was
because the camera was rolling.
There was of course the clip of him saying, "I'll never recover from this" after Saf got his arm bitten off, and it's like, okay, you're more concerned about the arm, not the arm being ripped off, but just the damage it does to your park. And like they show that he also treated people kind of terribly, but it's so light in the documentary compared to the rest of his life. Like him giving his workers like nearly expired or expired meat from Walmarts and stuff, and it's like,
and customers,
yeah,
like people coming to the he fed them that pizza that probably had expired meat. Like that was
and I was just like, wow,
oh my God.
like,
never eating at a zoo again.
Yeah, part of me was just like, like, that's pretty awful. Yeah. And then I realized that Carol doesn't give her people anything. And they weren't there for years.
Yeah, and she's playing it smart that way. The thing with Joe,
she makes a lot more money that way, I can tell you that right now. Like,
yeah, the thing with Joe is I think if you take out the element of him trying to be popular, try to be famous, and if you try to give him any initiative to be nice, besides that, like if you knew that wasn't the goal, and if you just looked at him just as a person, you couldn't justify him actually being a good person in any way, because no matter how he was being nice, like even on Thanksgiving dinners when he's feeding the people or whatever, he wants to look good in the public. And that was kind of his thing, because he wanted to be popular. He wanted to have fans. So, of course, he's going to treat them, but he's not going to treat the people that got him there well, which is like the political, that guy. Obviously, I think he has a bigger, I validate his opinion more than some of the other ones, just because he seems a lot more normal than some of the other ones.
Yeah, Josh was one of the few that I was like, this is a regular person who just happened to stumble into this situation.
Yeah.
And suffered probably the most out of everybody, I think. Just the horrific detail of what happened to Travis in front of him is just...
watching somebody die in front of you, yeah.
That got me very emotional. I actually had to pause because I started crying. I was like, I relate to that so much on a personal level, and I was like, I felt terrible for Josh when I was watching that, because he was like, yeah, a Ruger won't fire with a clip in it, and obviously it will, and that was just really hard for me to sit there and finish that episode. I actually had to stop because I was like, this is just too emotional, this is too sad for me. And I think it took me like a good 6 hours before I went back to it last week on my day off. I was like, I'll finish this at some point, but the emotional height for me reached the peak at that point, and everything from there, it just spiraled into like a burning ball of like fire. Like everything from that point was just there. Joe's life completely fell out of control at that point. Like after Travis died, everybody around him started to suffer more. He was completely out of control, and at that point, I think that he lost whatever was left of himself, of what people would have said, this is an okay person, to the point where he doesn't care about anything except himself at this point. And it makes it really hard to want to watch the rest of the series.
I think he had a natural self-destruct type of personality. No matter what, he would have gained. Obviously, the whole love triangle or love thing, he wants to be loved. He wants to love somebody. Anybody does. So if you take that and, that kind of concretes him down a little bit to where he has something normal. That's why he never went crazy until that was taken away from him. But he has self-destructive personality anyways from the start. So the only thing else he wanted besides love was to be famous. So that's where he went. And whoever was stopping him, which was Carol Baskin, that was his. If he could eliminate her, then he felt like he could get farther than that. So he wasn't. He's not smart. I don't think he has any intelligence really on that side of like strategy.
I wouldn't say so either.
Really smart for this. He's really smart for doing that, but I honestly think he just reacts off of emotion, instant emotion.
Yeah, for sure.
Some people think it's like when they were talking about premeditated and he was being super strategic and all that. I don't think that was the case.
I don't think that's the case. Like,
yeah, I think
it was more of an emotionally based thing. Like, I think it was more like because he lost a lot because of Carol Baskin over the course of the years that series was filmed. It seemed like.
They said a number of over $2 million was used.
Like $2.5 million or something.
Yeah, is what she used. Who knows if she ever got that back?
I don't know, but I think the best way to summarize this entire series in one sentence would be careful what you wish for. Because Joe ended up getting exactly what he wanted in the end, but also now he's in prison for basically the rest of his life. Because by the time he would get out, he'd be 76 or 77 years old, and a lot of people are like, he'll be dead by then. Like, unless, of course, he gets pardoned.
I think he'll get released early. Stuff on those type of charges, they usually do. But, I mean, if he can get enough of people advocating for him, there might be a chance for him to be reevaluated, kind of thing. And
maybe, but if he has the potential for killing a person, being Carol Baskins, they might leave him in there just for the
when you say
everything that happened.
I mean, he talked about it for literally
years.
Yeah, so I think you took a crazy looking guy, and if he actually was going to kill her or not. See, I think he actually was going to, but on screen, he's not going to say that, obviously. And he said, well, I was just going to use him for the money anyways. But I think that guy was actually crazy enough that he was just going to go with the flow anyways. And
but at the same time, like, he said for years, oh, I want to kill her. Do you want to kill her for me? Like, I think if he gets out, he'd just try again. I really do.
I feel like that's just the weird one of, like, it's just hard to tell. Prison does stuff to people, so, like...
Maybe he'll reform himself and everything, but like I'd rather us not know. Like, I'd rather.
But I mean, if she dies, I mean, first prime suspect is going to be him. It's going to always lead back to him. I just think at this point, Joe's not that stupid.
You would hope.
I mean, I think it's. I don't know. I don't think he would, but it's hard to tell.
At the same time, he did run a business for a pretty long time that somehow made it, so he knows something, I guess. Yeah. So, what do you guys think about Carol Baskin?
I was just about to ask, because we're just about to hit the 30-minute mark.
We haven't talked about her new husband. We haven't talked about the dead husband. What's your guys' actual impressions of Carol Baskin? Like, do you think she's just that horrible of a person, or do you think she actually cares about the Tigers and wants to do something good for everybody?
I think that the Tigers are almost more of a front for her, personally. I feel like she did kill her husband, and I feel like the episode where it follows up with her first husband's family and how they basically were screwed over by this woman who acts like she's so caring and kind. Like, she just completely cut them all out and screwed them over. And I'm like, there's a mean streak in this woman, and I don't know what caused it, but I would not trust her either. Like, I think it's kind of the same thing. I saw that Investigation Discovery wants to do a series on Carol Baskin, and I'm like, I would watch that.
And the local police reopened the case.
Yeah.
To see. I think it's weird because she's clearly, in our eyes, the villain. And
right. I think that series tries to make everybody but Joe the villain. Like,
I don't think that's true. I think
I
Joe.
think so. Joe is a villain, but like I think that everybody against him, like they're trying to make him the main character, like for sure.
He's the main villain. It's obvious that as the show progresses, we see him as the villain. Like they're all of them are bad. The point of the show is that there's no one of them that are good. But what I was going to say was Carol
as well. So
oh yeah.
I mean, if the primary focus in the documentary is to gather the facts and present them. I mean, and people can make their own. You can twist it and you can show more things here and there to make it look like they're a bad person. But everybody's going to – the point of the documentary is to be able to present the information, and then we process the information. And so – but Joe being a bad guy, I mean, in the interviews, the workers and everybody around him make him the bad guy because that's what they tell us. And then we justify that because, like, well, if his own coworkers, if everybody he ever interacts with all thinks he's pretty bad for the most part, then he is the bad guy. So, but the actual portrayal of him being the bad guy, yeah, I'm not sure about that because there's definitely good shots of him, like where he's actually like doing good things and he's interacting with people and stuff like that. So I think the documentary was fairly fair to him. Like
right, and that's why I said I would call it a tragedy, is that slowly, I mean, Joe's always been a bad person, but slowly over time, it becomes more and more obvious to us that, hey, yeah, Joe is awful. Like, by episode 4, somewhere in the halfway point, I would say it starts to become very clear that you're like, okay, Joe is in this for himself. Joe doesn't really care about anybody else. I mean, even his husbands, he just wants companionship. He just wants to know that there's a companion there. There's a lot of stuff wrong with Joe. I think Joe has some good motives. I won't say he's completely terrible because I believe every person has good in them. But I think
that's kind of where I am on Joe. I don't think.
But
he's
I think they're all
awful.
I think they're all villains. I'd say that about all of them. Like same thing with Carol. I think
let's get back to Carol.
Carol's somewhere deep down in her because I hate that I watch this channel. There's something called the Reacts channel. Mm-hmm. And one of the kids on there reacting to Tiger King was talking about how he volunteered at Big Cat Rescue and felt like Carol wasn't portrayed the way he met her and knew her.
Sure.
And so I think Carol's the one because we're seeing the documentary through a lot of Joe's perspective. Right. Is that we're instantly like, oh yeah, screw Carol. Where
that's fair. That's kind of how I feel.
And I think Carol is also as bad as Joe. However, I think she's not as bad. She probably wouldn't attempt to murder somebody if he did. Who knows? But I think
there was a whole episode about whether or not she killed her own husband.
But I think until that's confirmed, I mean, like, which who knows? We might find out.
Well, I mean, how does a man that powerful just disappear and nobody hears from him for years? Something happened. Like, we don't know what. Like, maybe she didn't kill him, and maybe he was just killed by a tiger, and they just didn't do anything about it. I don't know, but it was something else, man.
Or Carol Baskin just poisoned him.
I love the Carol Baskin memes. I'm just gonna say it. I think they're the best memes to come out of the series, just because it's always like who caused this? That be Carol Baskins. I'm like, that's funny. Like, because we're all clearly just having fun at how crazy these people are. Like, we're trying to make light of everything. I like the memes probably more than anything.
Well, I mean,
of the entire series.
How perfect of timing did this Tiger King come out? Like,
right
at all the time that this whole series could have came out. It came out like when everybody's just trapped in their houses.
Right, and I think that the coronavirus. A lot of people have been saying this, but the outbreak has caused this series to get a lot more attention than it probably would have. All things considered. So all the fame and everything, these people just kind of lucked out, in terms of, the people who made it, of people actually watching their content, because there would have been no reason to watch this series, and it take off the way it did without an outbreak. It probably would have been popular still, but I don't think it would have ever been nearly as popular as it was over the past little bit. Anyway, I don't think there's really much more we could say. I don't know if Brandon's going to try to rejoin the call. We'll see.
I don't know. Carol Baskin got to him.
I think that she did it. Personally, I don't think there's anything more I could say about it. Whether it be him being fed to the tigers or being down there in that septic tank, I'm just I don't know how they're gonna be able to prove that she did it though. That's gonna be the real thing. Cold cases are hard to figure out anyway, especially when there's not a body.
If you get enough resources, and this has got enough. There's so many people that are interested in what's happening that, you might be able to get people that have little details that may come out, and we don't know how well they investigated it from the beginning.
Right. We don't know all the details, obviously, so there could be a lot more there. If Investigation Discovery is wanting to do a series on it, they're probably going to get a lot more info out of it than we saw in Tiger King. So I think that'll be a really fun series following up after this one. That'll clearly get some numbers for them, and I think that's good. People need content right now, so make a series out of whether or not Carol Baskin killed her husband 20-something years ago, because people will eat that up.
You can watch all of our Nothing Coherent videos.
That is true. You could watch all of our Nothing Coherent videos on YouTube.com. So you can also listen to our episodes on Spotify or SoundCloud or Apple Podcast, or even name some other ones for us, Ryan, because we're everywhere now.
On iHeartRadio, we're on Stitcher, we're on iPod Bay, or I think that's what it's called. Google Play.
Yep.
There's 3 other ones I'm forgetting now.
We're everywhere.
They multiply. They multiply every day. It seems like.
You're killing it with keeping that up everywhere. So.
Yeah, and we're continuing to do more and more things as well. If you guys are listening to this still, but we've got a lot of cool things that are coming up. Hopefully, 2020 should be very good to us, and we should be able to provide a lot more content.
We will do whatever we can to adjust with everything going on. So just keep posted. The best thing for you to do is hit that subscribe button on YouTube, because that's where most of our stuff is going. So if you can hit that button for us, click the bell, make sure you get the notifications, you won't miss a thing. And we upload a gaming video almost every single day, so that's mostly with just me, but we're going to try to get more content out there in the future for you guys, whether it be movie reviews, game reviews, all that sort of stuff. Brandon and I will be talking about Final Fantasy VII's remake coming up soon, so that should be the next podcast video for you all. I don't think there's anything left that we have to say, Ryan, so any parting words?
Yeah, it kind of got cut short a little bit, but that's okay. We got the gist of it. Tiger King's crazy.
Yep.
Joe's in jail. Carol Baskin should be in jail. That's it.
All right, guys, thank you all for watching, and we will see you all next time.
See ya.